On the teaching framework, we're going to go over some a section. I think it's section 3, and I'm going to cheat off of someone's. Can I borrow off yours? Okay, so we're going to go off of other module 3. And just before we crank into that option 3 there, is there any questions from last week or anything that you want to bring up before we crank into that? Any quick questions on your mind?
Can I get a bailout?
No bailouts. Sorry. Any other questions at all that come to mind? Nope. Okay, well, what's the first one say? Balance work-life ministry. John, you sweating back there? All right, so if you click on that one, what this is, this has a little to do with finance, but it has to do more with partly why I do what I do. I have, in my career, I have put a lot of things in the center of my life, and what I have found is a lot of them don't hold me up when crap happens. And so at one time I put my career there, another time I put Sharon there, my wife, another time I put my church there. And it's sort of like when I say there, what I mean is if I do this really well, everything else will be okay. So if I love Sharon really well, everything else will be okay. Or if I do my job really well, everything else will be okay. Or if I do church really well, everything will be okay. And I think I drew this chart about 10 years ago when I finally realized none of that stuff works. You know, it's all good stuff, but basically, if you read the center, it says conversation with God through the gospel is what the center is. And so it's sort of like this pen. Just imagine this pen that I'm holding, and we try to balance it right here so it stands up. And if I blow on it, it would stay standing up. If I kicked it would stay standing up, meaning it's solidly standing up in balance. That's that center circle called conversation with God, because there is nothing that can happen to me that I can't have conversation with God going on. And so it is totally circumstance independent, but it took me 25 years to figure that out. And so I put a lot of things there thinking that was going to be solid, and it wasn't solid. And so now that I realized that, then it was like those things around it, around that center circle, those are things that I think of in verses that I've memorized to try to keep me realizing that God's the center. And so I call that my fuel. And so that's my fuel chart or spiritual balance chart. And it's just something, and I've memorized every one of those verses around, and that's just the way I keep going. But one of those says wealth on it. And that helps me keep, again, balance on the whole thing. If I don't realize that my money and my wealth is God's, I'm going to get out of balance. And so money is just a piece of it, but it's something that I stuck that in there just to give you context to the money and the personal finance and the wealth that you're planning. Just realize it's a context to something bigger in terms of just overall balance in your life, not just financial balance in your life. Does that make sense? Sort of? And then once you do those circles right, then you just gush God out in your career, and you just gush God out into your family, and you just gush God out into the community, and you just gush God out into the church. And so the source of that is all that center circle. And that's just been real huge in my life, so I decided, and it's my program, so I put it in there. So that's where that one is.